Here.
Mr. Chester?
Here.
Ms. Romeo? Here. Mr. John? Here. Mr. Sharon? Colonel Oswald?
Special guest recognition.
We always are special, but we do have special recognitions this evening as well. It sounds like I've got mic problems here. An instructor at
our high school, but also a member of our military community. And Mr. Kirkman would like to make a couple of very special presentations this evening to some very special individuals.
Mr. Beach and members of the families and friends, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule tonight to honor us with this presence, to honor these three individuals. In a perfect world, there would be thousands of soldiers and military families here lined up with me to thank these individuals for the great things they have done. But as you know, it's the nature of our community that many of our families are only with us for a brief period of time. So I could be so bold and presumptuous that I will speak on their behalf tonight. If you could please stand. These three individuals have touched the field artillery community and supported our nation's defense in Fort Sill in ways that I don't think even they know, and certainly many people don't know. I don't think Mrs. Baer knows that she wrote the check sheet for the National Patriotism Essay Writing Contest for the nation of Afghanistan in 2005, but she did. Coach Vaskilauskas does probably not know that when I visited a remote fire base on the Pakistani border, I found a group of 8 soldiers who had figured out a way to calculate Russian firing tables to be utilized on a Russian system using American sights. And when I asked them how they did that, they said they had this crazy coach back at Eisenhower High School that had them do things like that. I've not shared with Mr. Elam that I've met a single parent in Iraq who was extremely grateful that he had not given up on her son and was continuing to help him through high school while he was deployed. So you can see it's only proper that the Field Artillery Association take this evening and take this occasion to present 2 of our highest awards. So receiving the Honorable Order of Molly Pitcher is Mrs. Janet Baer. Receiving the Order of St. Barbara. And the Order of St. Barbara. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a brief swearing in we have to do. As Mr. Beecham, I know you are a holder of this award, so if you please, gunners, raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
that I will continue
that I will continue
to uphold the traditions
to uphold the traditions
of Fort Sill
of Fort Sill
and the Field Artillery.
and the Field Artillery.
So help me God.
So help me God.
There's also a concoction you're supposed to drink at the end of this. We'll do that. We'll do that on another occasion. Thank you.
that will need to be done. If we can, Keith's going to get a Zoom lens are a great thing. The concoction is not legal on school premises, so we will do that at another time, another place. If I may, thank you, Mr. Kirchin, I appreciate it. If I may just make one comment before you exit, Mr. Vaskilauskas and other. Okay. I just very briefly, let me say this. I know that Mr. Kirchin talked a great deal about your influence on the people that he came in contact with that were abroad. And it is really, I think, it epitomizes what you do, because it does go out, the students do go out into the world, and they do touch many others. But we are extremely grateful that the 3 of you touch our students every day at Eisenhower High School, and we want to congratulate you and say thank you very much for that.
Architect's report.
No architect's report this evening.
Departmental reports.
This evening for our departmental report, I have asked Mr. Kyle Smith, I'm sorry, that's Chad Kirchin that left. You're Mr. Smith, aren't you? Mr. Kyle Smith, if he would introduce a group from Gateway Academy that is piloting our Odyssey software program that we're using on our internet-based instruction, on our course recovery program. We did some summer school work with it. We're looking at it to do some home-based instruction, and he has with him 3 special individuals from Gateway this evening. And so, Mr. Smith, if you'll take charge.
We have, as our guest tonight, one of our administrators that is in charge of our credit recovery IBI Odyssey-ware program. Mr. Barrett's going to come and talk to us briefly about that program. We also have one of our counselors that works closely with our students on getting credit recovery and what classes they can take, and how quickly they can make up the credits that they're missing for graduation. And also one of our teachers that works closely with Odyssey-ware, Mr. John Cloud, and he's going to have a little demonstration about how Odyssey-ware works and what it looks like and how the kids get into it and get their lessons daily from using this program. So let me introduce Mr. Barrett, and then after that, Mr. Barrett will introduce Ms. Barker and then Mr. Cloud.
I have a read this to you, and as soon as we get through reading this, we'll have Ms. Barker talk to you about the credit recovery, and then we'll have Mr. Cloud do his demonstration of Odyssey-ware. Let's start with Lawton Public School currently has set 85 licenses, and those 85 licenses are for any 85 students at any time. They're not for 85 particular students. They're for any 85 students that cares to log on. Gateway Success Center is currently using Odyssey-ware with students in classrooms for blended instruction, credit recovery, and remediation. Lawton High School, Eisenhower High School, and MacArthur High School are using the software for credit recovery and remediation. What is blended instruction? Blended instruction is the use of both computer technology and software, along with teacher-led guided instruction. It is not only new technological teaching, but also teachers demonstrating proper techniques and skills. Thus, blended instruction is simply a blend of old and new, and we do them quite both well over at Gateway. What is Gateway about? Most students attending Gateway Success Center are behind in their credits for various reasons. After all, that's the reason for our school's existence. We cater to those students who do not fit in at other high schools. Sometimes in the community we are referred to as the bad school. Yet we're quick to point out that we're not the bad school, we're an alternative school, not a disciplinary school. With that said, our school day consists of 7 periods, allowing the opportunity for 1 more credit per year than our other high schools, plus credit recovery classes, which enable a student to regain credits at an even faster rate. Each student's maximum potential is limited by the student's willingness to learn. In certain cases, we even allow a student to participate at home on his or her internet-capable computer. Mr. Cloud will demonstrate how that works later. What is Odyssey-ware? Software to Lawton Public Schools. Lawton Public Schools piloted the program during the summer school session of 2012. John Cloud was the teacher of record while I served as administrator of the system. Every day we would get up in summer school and we would, while the kids were doing Odyssey-ware, we were doing Odyssey-ware too. We were learning, and it was pretty amazing to go through that. Even though there has been Odyssey-ware training provided, most of what we currently know has been learned by experimentation and implementation during summer school sessions and the current school semester. What does that Odyssey-ware have to offer? Currently there are 131 courses in our version of Odyssey-ware. When I say our version, I mean there are approximately a dozen courses that we have customized to fit our needs, which is completely legal and capable of doing. Odyssey-ware came equipped with about 120 courses, and more are being added as we speak. And where does this lead us? Internet-based instruction is currently being offered in most colleges and high schools across the nation. We currently just have a teacher that just finished his master's degree online, and this is basically the same type of program. This is not going away. Internet-based instruction is the education wave of the future. We at Gateway would like to offer our thanks and appreciation to Mr. Beecham, Mr. Smith, and the Lawton Public School Board of Education for allowing us the opportunity to participate in internet-based instruction. Without programs like this, many Lawton Fort Sill students would never achieve their goals of graduating from high school. We would also like to thank the Odyssey Aware support team personnel consisting of Barry Swihart and Donna Thomas for their willingness to answer any question, no matter how trivial and timely, and in a professional manner. Thanks for all you do. This time, Ms. Barker, will you do your presentation of credit recovery?
I've been with credit recovery from the very beginning, so I just wanted to trace the history with some numbers. Students have done from a half a credit up to 2.5 credits in credit recovery. Most of them only need a half credit, so when I say the numbers, you'll understand why they are what they are. The first semester we offered credit recovery. It was just at Gateway in the afternoons, and students from all 3 high schools came over there. In that first semester, we had 68 students that completed 63.5 credits. The second semester, we had credit recovery set up the same way. 48 students completed 50 credits. And then I hadn't added these numbers up from second semester last year until they asked us to do this presentation, and it kind of amazed me, and I was there. Second semester last year, we had 137 students complete 139 credits with credit recovery. That's after school. And I went back and checked, and 64 of those were dropouts who came back and completed their credits. So they're now high school graduates. And you know all the statistics that go with dropouts. Currently, right now at Gateway, about half of our students are using Odyssey Aware, either for credit recovery, remediation, or courses that we can't offer in the building. For instance, most of our students don't take Algebra 2, so they require an extra arts credit. We don't have an art teacher, so we're able to let them get on the computer and do art courses that are offered through Odyssey Aware. We have certified teachers working in the lab every day, so that if you need math, you're in the hour with the math teacher. So there's a teacher in there that's certified so we can give them credit. We are also currently expanding Odyssey Aware to the group homes. The girls' group home is first, and of course those are girls that are moved around constantly, and they find it very difficult to get their credits, and so they end up being what we consider dropouts. So we're hoping that we can help some of those girls, and then in the boys' home also get their high school diplomas. Odyssey Aware also includes Common Core. All of the courses include either short answers or essays, including the math classes. So they're already moving, and they're adding to the Common Core also. And I have a very special announcement. One of our Gateway students in the first 5 weeks of school has completed a half a credit of art history. So he is the first student in Lawton Public Schools to get credit during this year. So we're very proud of him. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cloud's going to jump on this computer over here. Stay right here. Okay.
Yeah, if I could, I'm going to ask you if you will take these 5 seats out here and so I can lower the screen and you can see this appropriately. We'll just take us a minute. And I think you'll find this extremely interesting and While we're doing this, Mr. Barrett, Mrs. Barker, and Mr. Cloud, one of the things that they didn't bring to your attention is that there is a misconception that internet-based instruction is watered-down instruction, and it's not that at all. If you have taken any internet courses, you know that generally they're not watered down. Their rigor is at least as high, if not higher than you would have in the actual physically being in the classroom. And the rigor in these classes has been set so that those students are truly challenged, and when they complete one of these courses, we indeed feel like they have satisfied the requirements that would be equal to or exceed what they would have done had they spent their time in the class. And because of their capabilities, much like the young man that talked about earlier with the 5-week completion of a class, many of them can catch up, get back on track, and in even some cases get ahead. So, Chris.
With that said, one of our students at summer school this year, she completed a whole semester, was it a semester or a year? Semester of world history. U.S. government, personal financial literacy, in 6 days. So, but now she was an exceptional student. Her goals, one of the questions in personal financial literacy set for goals, and she was going to graduate from high school by 17, finish dental school by 22, and own her own practice by 24. And she might well do it. Mr. Clapp.
Teachers as well as kids, they'll sit down on the screen and everybody logs in.
Everybody's password that we've set up for this school, for all the students and all the teachers except for one, him, is their 6-digit ID number. So there's never any confusion as to in losing their password. And there's only myself and Mr. Cloud right now can ever change a password for the students. So they're pretty well. If we want to change it for them, then they can't get in unless we allow them to do that.
So I'm logged in as a teacher right now. I see some actions that require my attention. I've got assignments right here. Most of the assignments are right by the computer. But once in a while, we'll have to write a message or a paragraph so the teacher can require the teacher to use. So that's something that I'll do tomorrow for class. And down here at the bottom, I've got a message. Kids can send me a message if they need help, especially if I'm not in the radio. I don't have this little girl in class, she's in the credit recovery lab at a different time than I am. She needs some help, so I'm going to make an appointment to go see her. Then I've got this message here from this guy.
Yeah, he's in school with us.
He's in school, so let's see what he's got to say. This is Mike Gundy, and he's enrolled in Civil War class. And he's having a little trouble. Mr. Cloud, I'm having trouble with this Civil War stuff. Supposed to be about north and south and blue and gray. I know that Stillwater's north of Oklahoma City and Norman is to the south. We are orange and they are crimson. Am I on the right track? Please help me. Thanks, Mike. So I'm going to have to help out Mike here with the Civil War. So now I'm going to log out and I'm going to log in for Mike Gundy.
So this is what Mike would be seeing. Mike Gundy would be seeing.
This is what the students would be seeing if they were studying this particular unit. Oh boy, I missed that.
Might be a parent teacher for Mr. Cloud Bowl. University.
Well, this is kind of good in a way because I meant to mention this, and Mr. Barrett alluded to it. The kids have an opportunity to work at home if we enable them to. Now, we'd rather that they work at school. So one of the first things that I do each morning is I log in and I enable the students, and you can see right now that we've got this student right here, Antoine. He is enabled because they were doing some credit recovery at McCarthy this afternoon. So that's why those folks are enabled. I need to go down here and I need
Look, we have a person at each high school that will enable their own, and we won't have to deal with them calling us to do that. What Mr. Beecham said about more rigor, we've also set our standards at, instead of being 60% pass rate, the computer doesn't consider 60% passing, we set it for 70%. So it has a higher percentage to pass.
Okay, so I've got him enabled, so I'm gonna log in again. Now, so we've got Mike Gundy enrolled in Civil War and Algebra 2. And so I'm gonna try to help him out, or we're gonna look what he's having trouble with the Civil War. So this is what the students see. There is audio. There's also some animated cartoons from time to time in the lessons. And so let's see.
Consecrate. Hello. Principal. Score.
So then get a little audio help. And Mr. Gundy is trying to learn about the Civil War. And during the Civil War, or sometime or another, there was this speech that was made by one of our presidents. And so the software has the capability of reading.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether this nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battle, field of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether right and even proper that we should do this.
So they can get some visual, they can get some audio help. Anyway, there's some material there to read through it, and then they have questions. And during this summer, we had a couple little girls that, they were sisters. I got to watching them one day, and they didn't speak English too well. But I noticed they were using this little deal right here. They were having passages translated into their native language, Korean. And so this is another good thing about the software. So that's what they'd do. They'd read the passage in Korean and try to answer to the best of their ability in English.
They've been in the country 2 years.
2 years. So right now, those are the languages that the Odysseyware can translate. Now, what would be really neat if it would also speak, but I think that probably is a little bit further on down the line. So that's just a little brief summary of what the Odysseyware can do. It won't take the place of a teacher. It's to be used as a supplement. The teacher is still going to have to teach.
Okay. I think that's all he has to show you. So I'll wrap it up right here. I want to thank Mr. Cloud and Ms. Barker, because without them I couldn't do this. They're the one that does it. I'd like to wrap up the presentation by stating that at Gateway we have a highly motivated and highly qualified teaching staff, and we love for each one of you guys to come by and visit us. And really, we would love for y'all to come by and visit us. So just call or drop by. That's what we have to do. Thank you.
Tools that can be used very effectively, especially by students who are non-traditional in their approach to learning. And whether it's a translation into their native language because they're ELL students and needing that kind of help, or whether it is the opportunity to move at a pace that they determine, the software really gives them a chance to be as successful as possible. We're certainly not to the point yet where you just put them in a room, give them a computer, turn them loose. But what we're looking at as time goes by is that we will see that a large number of our students, I believe in public education, will want to be involved in a blended education program. And the students that we saw this summer, they mentioned that they had a young lady who in 6 days finished a whole semester course. What they didn't go into detail and tell you was that that young lady came in at the start of the morning, she hooked it up, worked for 3.5 hours each day diligently, even skipped the break that the kids would take because it was important to her to move forward and get all of the opportunities that were out there. So if she can get some of the coursework done for government in 2 weeks, let's say, then she has an opportunity to look and see what she can do next. Every time a student is able to do that, then that expands their opportunities to take more classes, have more exposure in different areas, or to advance to the next level at a faster pace. Now, we don't want 14-year-olds going to college, and we're not going to have much of that problem, I don't believe, but we will have some students who will want to choose to use this type of instruction for acceleration. Right now, we're strictly trying to use it for remediation, going back over a course they may have already had, giving them a second chance to explore the information and to succeed. We're using it for credit recovery, that they just simply, some place in time because of a move or whatever, they need an extra credit in order to graduate. Our requirements may be different. There may not be a provision within the law that allows us to waive those credits, and so they can get it by doing this. And as he said, it can actually be done from home in some instances, and that's another aspect of this that we're looking at. Students who have health issues, students who have medical issues, could stay on track by a teacher coming by on a regular basis, but them having this opportunity to have the information and exposure to this. It is not the answer to all of education, but it is certainly a tool that I think you will see over the next few years will become prominent. Obviously, the colleges where there possibly are students that are more focused and disciplined on working independently will be able to use it and are using it a much greater application than we are at this time. But it is going to be the wave of the future. It is going to allow our students to have an opportunity to accelerate, to catch up, and to maybe even be exposed to some things that otherwise we would not be able to offer them. In our peer group of high schools, the average number of courses offered by high schools that are our size in the state is around 85 to 90. So having 120 courses in the basic format tells me right away that there are 30 plus courses that these students can take because of their interest level. That they may want to take something that we cannot afford to offer them because there may only be 5 kids in the whole district that have an interest in that area. They can take these same classes and satisfy that curiosity they have, be provided with the opportunity to have the knowledge as they move into the next level at college. So I I know that there was a very simplified version, but you would be amazed when the kids get hold of the technology, how they can take this and run with it and make an application that is very, very beneficial and useful to our students. I'll quit preaching.
Have ACT and SAT prep courses?
You know, I do not know if that is one of the 120 courses or not. I know that those are available, and we certainly need to look into making that available. One thing, and I'm not sure that Brett went far enough with his explanation of the 85 license. We can have 85 students on it 24/7. Now, we obviously know that's not going to happen, but if I get on and get off, somebody can replace me. It's not just 85 assigned students. So over the course of a day, you can have literally hundreds of kids. We only bought 85 licenses for two reasons. One, that was what our funding would allow. It was available at that time. But two, we looked at other districts our size, and what were they doing? And they were basically operating in the 80 to 100 license range, because if they said idle, you're paying for something that you're getting no use out of. So you want to try to find a number that's as close as possible to what you really will utilize during a day. And 85 in the afternoons when we're operating at Eisenhower, MacArthur, and Lawton High, and doing credit recovery at Gateway, that's a pretty good number. We're pretty much on track that we're going to have from 65 to 85 kids going every afternoon doing remediation or acceleration. So I just wanted you to see that. The way you really need to see it is to go into the building and see the kids using it. Because in one classroom, it is possible for you to see the child working Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry with the same math teacher. And that's what we saw in summer school. One math teacher being able to help a variety of students. Therefore, you didn't need 20 Algebra 1 students in order to make the class. If one child needed it, you could make that work because the compilation of the group allowed you to have enough students to make it financially possible to do that. And that's another advantageous thing about it. So, okay.
Okay, next item, your report, please.
Under item 7A, you have with your agendas this evening a copy of the summary of budgets and financial information. When I talked with you at last board meeting, you were aware of our $3 million plus revenue shortfall. What has happened actually started happening even before that meeting, but what has come to completion or fruition over the last couple of weeks is a modification of our budget to fit our revenue. I don't know that last time I was clear in making the comment that our revenue shortfall was $6.5 million. We had already addressed half of that by staff reductions and making some other budget changes. But the other $3.5 million is what came into play, and I would just simply like to visit with you about that particular aspect. And I apologize, my table's rocking, so my microphone's kind of bouncing around. On page 1 of the budget recap, you can see that the revenue projection for the year is $112,987,277.04. I'm sure about the 4 cents. The other part of it is a little bit less concrete. The revenue, as it's broken down, just simply you can see the district-wide revenue, and that means basically the general fund discretionary revenue in excess of $78 million. Then district-funded programs and so forth. And I could read all those to you, but the ones that are critical, the $78 million is the general fund. The state revenue is at $11 million. Now that's program revenue. That's revenue they give us that they tell us where it can go and how it can be used. And then the next one, the next two, the federal programs, the last two, where it says federal program revenue and then other federal programs. The other federal programs is actually child nutrition and some of these supplemental programs, not necessarily the instructional programs that are in our federal grants. The federal programs revenue represents our impact aid, our Title I, our Title II, 3, 4, 8, all of those things are in that $14,647,000. That's how we got to the $112 million. You can see the expenditures for the district are roughly $76 million in salaries and $22 million in benefits. If you add those two together, you're going to come up with $99 million out of that $112 billion. And that leaves little over 13 million, almost 14 million dollars to operate the district fund. That's to pay the bills. That's what's left after we put teachers and staff in the buildings to operate on. So that'll give you some idea of the percentage of the district that goes to the salary and benefit portion. Most school districts operate in the 85 to 86% range on salary and benefits, making up that portion of their budget, and we're no different than most school districts. What we did in the next couple of pages are breakouts of individual budgets, where you can see how we budgeted for water, electricity, and so forth. But basically what I need to share with you this evening is how we made the adjustments, or what adjustments we made in order to try to reduce that $3 million deficit. We went through and calculated all of the items that we get in revenue, how we have in the past calculated them, what we could find out from the sources about any changes in those revenues and projections. And we were able to ascertain that we should receive a little bit more ad valorem tax than originally projected. Part of that is because there is a growth in the ad valorem base in our community. The other part of it is because traditionally we conservatively budgeted only 95% of it. So we had a little bit of a buffer in there, so we went back and picked up that amount of money. We also did our indirect cost calculations, and that basically means what do the federal programs pay into the district to offset some of the costs that we incur because of their programs, and that generated a little over $500,000. We had transferred in we had a sick leave balance account where we transferred in $275,000. That amount had been setting in that account for years, and so we simply moved that account back into the general operating budget. We had the sale of the Kuntz building which was $190,000. We have not received that money yet. Mr. Wade's working with that group, but this is the year they are to pay us the balance of what they owe us there. And then we will be looking at transferring some funds out of the activity fund, which will be funds generated by various events that are district sponsored, not school sponsored. We also went to the expenditure side, and that's probably the more important part of this and the more difficult aspect of it. Last year we spent right at $1 million on substitutes. That's an inordinate amount of money, and one that we have got to trim. So I'm working on some adjustments in how we will hire substitutes, when we will hire substitutes, and we're going to try to cut that number basically in half. We've been able to operate with that number at a half for years gone by. Why last year's number was as excessive as it was, I don't know, but it is one of the things that we need to look at bringing back into control, a cost containment type issue. We also will be doing a reduction in any overtime. We reduced billing allocations. We reduced administrative allocations. We did really have to take a hit in our maintenance department because we transferred some of the cost of our utilities into our maintenance budget in order to free that money up in the general fund and make the budget balance. By doing all of that, we can present you with the balanced budget tonight. But if you'll go to the final page of your handouts, it says summary. Well, that's actually that's the building fund summary. You go back to the first page of your account, that one that's the general fund recap. I again would point you to the bottom where it said budgeted reserves, and that is a 0. Now, having said those things, and obviously I've said them in very generic terms, and basically said to you that this is what we're projecting, and it is what we're projecting. There will be fluctuations throughout the year. We're hoping those fluctuations are minor or that they're very positive. And we will know a little more at the end of next week regarding impact aid receipts. As you know, right now it looks like we're going to take approximately a $1.5 to $1.7 million cut. However, there are some back payments out there that we're trying to get expedited and brought into the district, those type things. And so hopefully we can continue to modify the budget and bring you back frequently a recap of how those numbers have changed. Now, they appear in the financials every month, but they're not always clearly delineated, and I think that's something that we need to do on a regular basis this year, at least quarterly, come back to you and give you an update of the budget. Because anytime it's this tight, we certainly want to be sure we're monitoring it, we're on top of it, and you know where we stand, and I know where we stand, so that we can do anything we need to do to make it a viable situation, and certainly one where we are taking care of our fiduciary responsibilities. It is going to be a challenging year. In the last 4 years, we have lost in excess of $10 million in state aid and $3.5 million in impact aid. We are being asked to do more and more and more with less and less and less. We have shown a decline in enrollment the last couple of years, but not to the degree that's reflected in our state aid. The drops in the state aid, the bulk of them are a result of a cut of over $250 million in funding that the state is putting into education. And when you cut $250 million out of a program, somebody's going to pay for it, and right now the school districts are paying for it. But we're going to have some wonderful bridges and roads in Oklahoma in the very near future. And I say that, and I'm sorry to be cynical, but there was $300 million left last year after the budget was completed by the legislature, and they chose to put all of it in building bridges and roads, which I'm all for, because we certainly need them, but I wasn't for all of it going there, when they could have looked at the fact that they had cut $250 million out of education in the prior 2 years. So, but we're going to deal with that and move forward, and it doesn't do a lot of good to whine, and so that's not the posture we're going to take. We're going to do everything we can to keep the cuts in the district as far away from the children as possible. Now that may sound strange because everything we do affects the children, but limiting their opportunities is not going to be the first reaction we have to cutting money. We're going to ask staff to step up and help us be as conservative and still progressive and productive as we can possibly be. This problem doesn't just belong to Barry Beecham. I wish it did, because I'd go jump off a cliff or do something that would solve it. But it doesn't just belong to me. It belongs to a community, it belongs to a school district, and it obviously belongs to this Board of Education in addition to the CEO of the school district. So we're going to do everything we can to do this in a common sense way. It is going to be a tough year. It is going to be one of those years that we are not going to look forward to having a repeat of, but I'm told by one of our legislators that Oklahoma's economy is one of the best in the world. And you know, that's probably pretty close to right, but that doesn't mean that the way we're funding our education program is appropriate, and that's the state that we've got to address. That's the aspect of it that we've got to look forward to. So, having said that to you, what I present to you this evening is a balanced budget, and it will come with a lot of work. It will come with a lot of continuing change, but I do believe everything we propose to you is obtainable, and that's going to be my job and my challenge, is to get us on the track that will allow us to obtain that. And I would ask you to approve that or to take action on that.
Any discussion? Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and I assure you, you will get nothing less than 100% effort from this administrative staff and this staff of the school district to make sure that our children are provided for as best we possibly can, given the resources we have. Under item 7B, I would ask you to consider approving the proposed budget of Saturday mathematics replacement class. That is a class that students attend to try to improve their knowledge base, and also they have an opportunity to replace a 9 weeks grade for 3/4 of the year by coming on Saturday and going to class and showing improvement. They pay for this class, and the tuitions offset the cost of the class. So there is no cost to the district, with the exception maybe of some lighting, a little electricity, and a little heating and air, but we generally run those things at these times anyway. So The truth is that this class is pretty self-sufficient, and it gives our students an opportunity to do in-course remediation when they're struggling in a class, especially the mathematics area. This gives them a kind of a tutorial opportunity during the course of the actual class rather than having to wait and repeat it at a later time. So I would ask your approval of that particular budget. And you can see, relatively small budget, but it's critical to those students who are wanting to make a difference in their performance.
How does this compare with the last year's budget?
I'm believing that it's just pretty much identical to what we've done in the past. This one, as I said, is self-supporting, so if we don't bring in the revenue, we don't offer the classes. So it should not be a cost.
Any other questions or discussion? Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Jessup?
Yes.
Mr. John?
Yes.
Ms. Romeo?
Yes.
Dr. Schutt?
Yes.
And that's all I have in my report this evening.
Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda?
Would you pull pages 93 through 103, please, for separate discussion?
Second.
Separate discussion?
Yes,
Go ahead and vote on the rest and then discuss this later.
whichever way you want to do it. If they are pulled, we can go ahead and do that. If we're just simply wanting to discuss those pages, we can discuss it and possibly vote on all of it at once instead of having two. So,
For that at this point, the reason for pulling these agenda.
Excuse me?
The reason for pulling these?
Well, I'd like to review the policy, the sanctioning policy.
Okay. Go ahead and start
So
discussion at
do you
this
want
point.
to table this
We
for
can
that
table it, we can
review? I make a motion that we table these items for a sanctioning review.
Second.
I would like to discuss that for a moment. I believe that if we're going to put in a policy or make a change that policy, that would probably need to occur for next year. Otherwise, we're going to be asking all these organizations to possibly have to work under a different set of rules.
Actually, in our policy, CFBB, it states at any time the Board of Education can revoke sanctioning or change sanctioning.
What's the indication for doing such?
Well, I have some questions about one particular organization.
Okay. Why would, again, I'm confused as to.
And I would just like the opportunity to review the sanctioning policy before I vote on any more booster clubs or parent organizations.
How will this affect their ability to operate right now?
You'd have to ask Barry that.
well, basically, it means that any of these organizations that are listed here will not be able to use school facilities, will not be under the auspices of insurance, while on our premises, they will be disassociated from us, and they need to, if they're not sanctioned, to immediately deposit all of their resources into our activity accounts if they're going to operate under our name, because non-sanctioned groups using our identity cannot operate outside of sanctions. So, Mr. Wade,
Any comments about the sanctioning issue?
The policy says that they're actually they're valid till the end of September.
Which is next Friday, and we don't meet again till the middle of October.
Maybe we should consider a special meeting.
If there is an issue with one item, would there be a reason to pull 11 sanctions? Would be my question, and I know the answer to that question before I ask it. I think that
I don't feel like we should point out one particular organization at this time.
The last time I checked, it was a public forum and it was pulled for discussion.
Right.
On page 93.
The John Adams PTA.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, 95.
Okay.
We have an Eisenhower Stakeholders Group, a copy of their bylaws. It says that this organization is a parent group.
Yes.
Under the impression that we can't have a parent, more than one parent group in one facility at any given time.
Okay. I don't know if there's statutory language or language that indicates that, or who made that particular statement. Let me share with you, based on the conversation Mrs. John and I had yesterday regarding those bylaws. The group in question, the stakeholders group, does refer to themselves in and out of that agreement alternately as the Eisenhower Parent Group and then the Eisenhower Stakeholders Group, so forth. They also did not list in their bylaws that they were a booster club or a parent organization. It's not clear. They also did not delineate in there if they were going to charge dues during the year, and they also did not delineate what they would do in terms of having a financial review on an annual basis. Based on that conversation and emails with Mrs. John, I contacted the group today and talked to them about their deletions and what would be necessary in order for them to be approved as a sanctioned group is that they would have to satisfy each of the criteria, the audit, and it's not really an audit, it's a financial review. The due structure would need to be listed, or at least the statement that there would be dues established for the organization, and those would be set by the executive committee or whatever group governed that particular body. And let me see, I'll go back and think of my third thing. Oh, and that they had to clearly delineate whether they were a parent organization or whether they were a booster club. Had to be stated outright. None of those were points of any contention with the group. All of those accommodations will be made. They cannot make them without convening by their own bylaws. They cannot make them without the group getting back together. So what I would say to you is if we want to wait till they represent those bylaws with those changes made so that they are in place, then my recommendation would be that we take only and table the one group, not all of the groups that are involved. If we're doing it strictly for the purpose of reviewing the sanctioning policy, then we do need to table all of them and look at how we've done that. But I would go back, and I know the policy says we can do it at any time, but I wonder about the question of integrity of changing the rules in the middle of the stream when we sanctioned booster clubs and PTAs, which, by the way, are the only two things we sanction: booster clubs, support groups, and PTAs. And we've sanctioned every one of the ones that's in place already, with the exception of these 10 or 11, under a different set of guidelines, and said that was acceptable. So I would ask you to either modify the motion to deal with just this one item, and us to get the corrected bylaws and bring those back, or to pass them as they are, based on the guidelines that we have in place. And then if we need to review the sanctioning guidelines, there's nothing ever wrong with taking a look at policy or reviewing that. But I do feel like that there are a lot of people that have kind of come into this mix that have absolutely nothing to do with this, and I think that's unfair to them to do that. And, I don't know how to be anything but honest and frank with you about it. So.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't think that the folks that have presented
Item and we
everything.
approve everything. You
I
want to
don't believe
amend
the
your
folks that have
motion?
already presented everything that has been asked of them, required, should have any reason for us to not approve their sanctioning. These things are reviewed according to our policy. As far as I can tell, all of these organizations have.
My concern is that, based on just looking at their bylaws, it looks like they pretty much copied PTA's bylaws. I had a little concern about that. I know that PTA's bylaws are copyrighted, and I don't want us to get in trouble in that degree, but I will make a substitute motion to pull page 95 only until they get the proper bylaws in place.
I'll second that motion.
If we may, Mr. Wade, you can advise here in terms of the commonality of the two sets of bylaws between PTA and this group. If there is a copyright or something in there, and I have no idea if there is or not, but I'm presuming PTA has developed some type of protection on those. Would that be an issue that in which the school district would have any liability for accepting bylaws?
That's an issue between the organization and PTA. But I would assume, based on the changes you're talking about, those probably would be sufficient to distinguish them from PT's bylaws, even if there is some repetition. I haven't seen them, so I really can't say. But it's not an issue of liability on the part of the district.
Okay. What? And this is, I'm picking your brain a little bit here, but I want us all to understand. What level of variation or deviation from existing language in a set of bylaws has to be achieved in order for it not to be something that could be deemed as a violation?
Well, I think if they clearly are established as a set of bylaws for a booster club, and don't refer to any kind of parent, teacher, or parent organization, then that probably in and of itself is sufficiently distinguishing. But I don't know, I've never seen a set of copyrighted bylaws. You know, if they're copyrighted, they're supposed to state on the bylaws themselves that they're copyrighted. And do they state, Mr. O'Neill, that they're copyrighted?
PTA, oh, I guess I do. As a matter of fact, let's see if they do stay. Do you know the answer to that, Pam?
I'm going to guess that most bylaws written by groups that are not represented by legal entities are probably modeled after some quality product, such as a PTA bylaw, which is indeed a quality product. And I'm guessing that they have used that as their template in order to...
Concerns arise from the fact that everybody that is a member of this new group was PTA president, vice president, treasurer, secretary last year, and
job or decision to direct parents in a direction of how they contribute to a school.
That's your opinion, Mr.
Well,
Mitchell?
and it is my opinion. It has to be in my district. These are people that I know. They put forth a great effort in bringing the school to a higher level. It was their decision to keep the dollars in Lawton as opposed to the dollars leaving Lawton. It wasn't to dispose of or get rid of the PTA. It was to create a separate organization to keep the dollars in Lawton.
But wouldn't you agree, in effect, that's what they've done?
In effect, they have created their own group, a very progressive group, to keep the dollars in Lawton, to keep them The secondary effects, I can't speak to. I don't know. But this trend that they are following, they didn't create this role model by themselves, or this model of this parent group or booster club. It came from other schools such as Edmond and Moore, which have done similar type of things. And I think we've addressed tonight our budget deficits and everything else that's going on. We all recognize that there's fewer dollars going to our schools. These are concerned parents. These are parents that are concerned about what's going on at the school, and they want the dollars to stay there. And that's what I understand from this group. That's their main goal, the dollars.
If I can speak frankly about the application. Because in the past, we've had problems with groups, not this group, but with groups that would splinter off, become rogue, do their own thing. There wouldn't be any financial accountability. And so therefore, that is the reasoning why we have the sanctioning and these measures in place of double signatures and all these procedures so that we can keep the money that is in our district, but also belongs to, to not have it stolen. So that is,
Mrs. John, what part of that did they not address and adhere to? All of the things you just listed.
I just said not them. I'm saying in the past.
But it's not. Sanctioning. Now, the sanctioning law came down in 1998 as a result of some issues that took place in other school districts, so they put them in place. The sanctioning law in the state of Oklahoma actually has no teeth. It has no penalty for not complying. If you go read the statutes. And I know because I wrote the original safety or sanctioning.
Why are we doing it then?
That's because it is a statutory requirement that you have it. But it has no requirements at the end.
I think you misunderstand, Barry.
No, I don't think I misunderstand.
Not this group. I'm saying in the past we've had groups that we had problems with.
And some of those groups were PPAs.
Yes.
And so anytime you involve people and money, you have to have safeguards in place, and that's what we have in place, and that's what we've asked this group to do, the same as we ask on the other 10 pages, the same that we ask of the other 300 groups that get sanctioned every year, that they have to follow the guidelines of the sanctioning policy, and that is in order to be acknowledged and represented, or represent our school district, use our reputation, basically is what they're using. When they go out and say, I am the Eisenhower X, Y, or Z. Well, if you're going to say that, then you need some accountability to that. And that accountability is to meet the requirements of the sanctioning policy.
Financial accountability is what really got it started in the first place. And I think that's one of the things that you're asking that this group put back into their bylaws is a requirement that they do that, as every other organization is required to do. And you're absolutely right, Ms. John. That's where the problems have come up with other organizations, and we've been able to deal with them when they're required to submit annual financial reports that have been reviewed by someone with some accounting expertise. We've been able to avoid a lot of potential problems by doing that. And I think the motion on the floor is very appropriate, and let this group bring their bylaws in line with what they're supposed to be, and then we can consider them at the next meeting. Good.
Who's seen the bylaws? Have you seen them, Barry?
I have, yes, I've seen the bylaws and reviewed them, and had several discussions with various people regarding them. There are omissions in them that need to be corrected, and I would concur that prior to approving this, we may want to make sure we could correct them contingent upon that happening, which we do on occasion, or we can just simply say you have to correct them and resubmit them, and then we'll reconsider at the next board meeting, whichever way. The thing that I think that comes into play here is that and I just, again, want to lay it out there. We have a group of people that are trying to do something to help a school. They could have called themselves the West Side Parents Group, not approached us at all, done anything they wanted in any manner they wanted, but no accountability to us, with everybody in the community knowing exactly what their purpose was and exactly what they were intending to do. And instead, they tried to go through the mechanisms. The issue at hand really turns out to be that these same individuals had previously been part of PTA. They chose no longer to participate in PTA and to start another organization. And do I concur with necessarily all the steps they took in doing that? I do not. I do not. I think it could have been.
Neither do I.
It could have been done in a different way.
Number one objection.
However, they do have a right as a citizen and as a patron of the school to change their mind about who they support and how they support them and go forward. And they've done nothing to violate our policy. They have not presented us with the appropriate bylaws that to meet our standards. And that's the thing I think that is in question. Once that is addressed, I don't know that there isn't.
Have they already donated money to the district that's been accepted?
Oh, yes. Yeah, they've donated a substantial money to the district, and there is no requirement to be sanctioned to donated money. If you'll go back and check my payroll records, I donated $6,000 2 years ago to this district. I'm not sanctioned. There is no requirement to do that.
Are there any
Title IX
requirements?
There are Title IX requirements on everything we do in terms of accepting donations, and that responsibility falls upon the district, not upon the donating group. When the district accepts a donation, they also accept the requirements within Title IX to make sure that it is equitably done based on gender and other areas. What was done with the original donation, I understand, and Mr. Elam left, so I can't ask him, was that they improved the weight facilities that exist at Eisenhower High School. George, you may know more than I do. You're part of that, I think. But again, they don't have to be a sanctioned group, thank God, to give money to the school district. They can donate just because they think there's a cause that's worthy and appropriate.
And we don't want to take that away from the kids. It just seemed to me like the way it was done was not the appropriate way, and nobody had any knowledge of this until I started getting phone calls from parents about, this group is paying off the district so they can be sanctioned. It makes us look like we're doing something illegal and underhanded, and I don't appreciate it.
Well, I don't believe, Mrs. Ronio, that there is any validity to anything underhanded or illegal going on, and I would be glad to see it improved. I'm not sure I appreciate the accusation you just made, being the chief operating officer of this district.
I don't appreciate not being told about this, Barry.
I think you've been told about it. You just didn't ask me about it.
I did ask you about it. And you told me that they were right down the line with their paperwork.
And
then I find out that that's not true.
You're right. And the four things I mentioned to you were not
money that's been given to the district for a wrestling gym or a weight room. Who made the decision to use that money for that? Was it given to that group?
It was given for that purpose. It was an earmarked donation.
We don't know anything about it. It just makes it look to the general public.
Let me ask you this question, if I may. You've been a great supporter of the Lawton High Wrestling program over years.
I haven't given money.
Have we reported every donation that was made to that organization to the board?
I don't know, Mr.
Because
Beecham,
we don't know.
I'm not participating in that. I have grandchildren that participate, and that's as far as my participation goes.
Well,
If you're asking me financially, you need to talk to the coaches in the Booster Club at Lawton High.
Okay. What I'm saying to you is there was nothing illegal about giving money.
That's
Nobody
fine.
approached me about, we'll do this if you'll sanction us. That's not it at all. If it was, I'd be telling you this evening that we need to do this, we need to do this, but we don't. I'm the one sitting here telling you that what Mrs. John brought to my attention about the discrepancies in not meeting our current sanctioning policy need to be addressed.
They do.
They need to be addressed.
They absolutely do, but we need to have a little more transparency between the superintendent's office and the board is what I'm saying.
I can assure you will have in the future.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor.
Repeat the motion, please, so we can clarify what you're asking to do at this point.
Mr. Romeo, make a motion to pull page 95 only until the bylaws are in place, seconded by Ms. John.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. John?
Yes.
Ms. Romeo?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
Dr. Schutz?
Abstain. Okay.
We do need an executive session.
Okay.
I make a
We-
motion that we approve the remainder. Do we need to approve the remainder of it now?
Yes.
Thank you for remembering that.
Call the roll, please.
Did we have a second?
Yes.
Yeah, it was second by Mr. Jester.
Ms. Romeo?
Yes.
Ms. John?
Yes.
Mr. Jester? Dr. Schutz?
Yes.
Entertain a motion to enter executive session.
I'll second.
There's a second by Ms. Romeo. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
Ms. Romeo?
Yes.
Ms. John?
Yes.
Dr. Schutz?
Yes.